to at the switch.
What a marvellous kitchen. Do show me how everything works. Mother never lets me do a stroke in the house, you know, so that if ever I take a place of my own, I shall have to either eat fruit or starve.
Not nowadays, darling. Cooking's just become a matter of pressing the right button. Plenty of time, there's plenty of time. Plenty of time for play. Woman plays in the home, but now she's out all day.
Made in the 30s, this film optimistically predicted a future where homes would be chore-free and all electric by the 1950s.
Plenty of time, plenty of time, plenty of time for play.
But in post-war Britain, this vision was still the stuff of fantasy.
I can start and iron 2 dozen shirts for you can count from 1 to 9.
Women spent over 2/3 of their waking hours on housework. Without electric appliances, keeping houses clean and warm was time-consuming and arduous.
Coal came in big lumps, and you had to actually chop it, so the coal dust got up your nose and in your eyes, and you had your hair always tied up in a turban when you did the coal fires. And it doesn't matter how hard you tried, the coal dust would still penetrate. So to keep yourself clean, I'd often dust the house twice a day. My granddad used to get quite, oh, you'd go, I'll put some newspaper in your coffin when you go, Gelbach, because I was always cleaning the grate with newspaper to keep it clean.
Well, to do your washing then, there was no other way but to wash it with a rubbing board. And of course we didn't have rubber gloves and all things like that then. You just have to, that was jolly hard work. You really had to rub it, and coloured things couldn't be boiled, so you had to rub them until you got the dirt out. And that was jolly hard, that was really hard. So when we went to see a film, and it was usually the American ones, they had all the lovely kitchens and, oh, heaven, great big larder fridge, and they'd open the fridge and all that lovely food. And somebody would be ironing, it would be so easy.
And tell him that his lonesome nights are over.
You'd come home and think, God, I wish I had a fridge like that, or I wish I had an iron like that. And as for a Hoover, I mean, that was going to be even heaven again.
Please turn on your magic beam, Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream.
But life at home meant going without. Rationing was even more severe than during the war. Purchase tax, sometimes as much as 100%, was imposed on all goods. On top of that, the public were asked to conserve electricity to help industry. The Americans were 20 years ahead of us in electrical technology. Their newsreel footage showed hard-up Brits doing without.
At trade fairs publicizing the export program, the British people are free to look at comforts and conveniences they long to enjoy, but they cannot buy them at any price. For the money these goods can bring overseas is the nation's chief hope of staving off economic disaster. For years to come, the British people realize they must do without so that their country can survive.
The war left the country in heavy debt for over a decade. The export program was designed to bring money back into the economy.
Export, export, you say? Must all good things in Britain go abroad? The answer is yes and no. The great majority must, and among them are, of course, pressed cold refrigerators. Good Housekeeping, 1949.
Even if you could afford a fridge, plugging it in might have blown your circuits. Existing wiring standards were dreadful, having been installed in a haphazard way since the 1920s. Electrical appliances could have 3 different types of plugs with 10 different amperages.
You know, we really shouldn't use that light point for the toaster. We've got a point in the wall.
Yes, it would be better, but you still haven't fixed the proper plug to the toaster, and I can't use it until you have.
It was quite an expense to have a new plug put in. You probably had one point in a room and a central overhead socket. And you may well have had all sorts of Heath Robinson, I'm sure, highly dangerous arrangements with adapters if you want to be very advanced and have standard lamps or table lamps, flex trailing all over the floor.
Bill and I have fitted the pin plug to the toaster, dear. You can use it in its proper place now.
Oh, that's fine.
Well, now can I on the main switch?
Yes, dear.
To prepare for the days when goods would be plentiful, people in older houses were encouraged to update their wiring and install sockets. Electricity was to be the lifeblood of modern homes. New regulations in 1950 ensured newly built houses would have ring mains wiring and standardized sockets.
There must be a sufficient number of socket outlets for full use to be made of electric labor-saving appliances. This is most important, for it costs far less to put them in at the start than it does to add them later. And where possible, the new universal 13-amp 3-pin fused plugs should be used.
Violet Tolley was relieved to leave her gas-lit rooms behind when she moved to a modern home.
We got the letter to move on Christmas Day to Harlow, Newtown. We'd been allocated this house, like, you know, and I hadn't seen it. My husband had seen it because he worked here, but I hadn't seen it. And we came on a snowy, cold, really horrible day from these dingy 2 rooms, and I hated it. It was horrible. Down to Harlow, and I walked in this house at Cleveland's, and it was magic. I went running around, switching all the lights on, and on the landing, I had a light on the landing, and that was just, that alone was lovely.
As coal shortages gradually eased, Britain's newly nationalised industry began to promote the use of electricity zealously. They desperately needed to persuade people to use more units so that the price of power would reduce for both industrial and domestic users. Electric consumption became a patriotic duty.
The theme is power, electric power, to carry Britain's reputation to the world's end and keep our country prosperous in the new Elizabethan age. Country Life, 1953.
In the same year, the Chancellor ended the country's self-imposed period of austerity when he reduced income tax and slashed purchase tax. Basic electric appliances began to creep back into the shops.
You went to pay your electric bill, and whilst you were in there, you saw all these lovely things in the showrooms which are now coming in, and you thought, oh, that's what I'm going to save for next.